The first Mortal Kombat game was probably perhaps the most fun that we've had because nobody was expecting anything from it. And then we had 4 guys working on the game, you know, so it was a very close-knit group. There was myself, John Tobias, John Vogel, and Dan Fortin, and there was no expectations, so everybody was kind of like leaving us alone in a corner while the other games were being worked on.
Ed Boon and John Tobias back in '91 had an idea for a fighting game. John came to me and a bunch of other people. We were in our prime, more or less, doing the tournament circuit, practicing a lot of martial arts.
Mortal Kombat really introduced a bunch of new things to just the arcade game industry. The first was visually, you know, we really had a great new technology, this whole digitizing graphics. Most games were done with sprites and looked a little bit more cartoony, and this was the first time that, you know, you would see images on the screen that looked like real people, and that, I think, attracted a lot of people to it.
On that first one, we were also working with the old pinball and video game audio hardware, which was basically an 8-voice FM chip and a drum track. So very limited resources and a great challenge to see, you know, what can I get out of this that's going to be effective and sort of give the pulse to the action.
The first character we had, I think, was Johnny Cage, and it was like we really wanted to have him be big on the screen. So that was like the demo, you know, Johnny Cage versus Johnny Cage.
There used to be an area downstairs in the division between video and pinball, and right there was a bunch of games, and we would put them on test there. And the game was getting a lot of play, and people were really starting to get excited about it.
When we got that first uppercut going, and when we got Scorpion Spear going, that's when people started coming into my office and playing the game a lot. Everybody suddenly took a bigger interest in the game, and all of a sudden there was expectations for the game. And then when we went on test and we saw everybody was kind of crowded around the machines and everybody going crazy, that was when we really had an idea that something was special.
The story goes that Ed actually did the first fatality and showed people what it was. And then after that, people started figuring it out, and then they just started hitting random buttons, and then, oh, I got this guy's fatality.
Back then, you couldn't go online and figure out a fatality. You'd figure it out yourself. I remember having notebooks full of every possible motion and going there with my friends going, okay, you take these 100, I'll take these 100, let's try to figure out these fatalities. And we'd figure out a fatality and then drive like 2 hours to another arcade where we knew there was a big group of people and do a fatality on them, like, yeah, we're not telling you how to do it, and then just leave.
Whatever you learned was secret, and you kept it to yourself. So I remember a lot of people covering up the controllers and like doing fatalities, and that was like the greatest thing ever because there was no internet. Nobody knew how to do these special moves except for certain people.
I stayed in the arcade until probably 5 or 6 in the morning, the first night it came in order to try and figure out all the fatalities before everybody else. So I got pretty good at it. I mean, that was one of the perks of working at an arcade.
We would put, you know, in the corner, you know, how many wins in a row you had, and so people could see, and it's like this, we physically put a badge up there saying, you know, 50 wins in a row, 60 wins in a row, and we'd see some people, you know, 120 wins in a row, and they would be there for like 4 hours straight playing the game. Nobody could kick them off.
When we had WaveNet in Chicago arcades, it would link up different machines from different arcades. One day, we went to Denison when they opened at 9 a.m., and on one quarter, we stayed there from 9 a.m. till 11 at night, and I think it was like 172 wins in a row playing against people online on WaveNet.
Our goal after Mortal Kombat was to do a Star Wars game. And so we started talking about it, and we were doing all these plans. Our general manager at the time came to us and said, you know, what's this I'm hearing about a Star Wars game you guys want to do? And you were like, yeah, that's what we want to do next. And he said, no, you're not going to do that. You're going to be doing another Mortal Kombat game.
I remember eating with a group of us at some restaurant, and Ed said, you know, the president wants to do a sequel to Mortal Kombat, and it was kind of like, really? We're doing a sequel to this thing? You know, like, it was kind of unheard of. We just assumed we would move on to the next idea.
When we got the green light to do the next game, everything just became, the goal was to make everything bigger and better. The graphics were better, we got a better camera to shoot the actors, we used a green screen or a blue screen, I'm not sure which one it was at the time, and we also got a bigger budget for the game, more people on the team, it was just, you know, bigger and better.
Going in, it's kind of difficult because you're trying to top the originality of the first one, and you're trying to recapture that same sense of it being new and fresh. We did more moves, we added a couple more characters, and the success of that seemed to me like, oh my God, this is gonna be really big.
We wanted to make everything bigger and better, so we got, Tony Goski joined the team, and he did a lot of those kind of iconic backgrounds that people remember.
When I started working on Mortal Kombat 2, is creating outworld environments. We kind of loosely knew what we kind of wanted to do, and just kind of like taking this Gothic Asian ideas and bringing it together and kind of creating like the look of Outworld.
In the factory across the street from where we were at, the employees had T-shirts made that said Mortal Kombat 300. What was the 300 for? They were shipping 300 cabinets out the door every day.
Each Mortal Kombat game was kind of like more and more intense in terms of everything, in terms of size of the team. We went from 4 people to like 6 people for Mortal Kombat 2, and then we had maybe 8 people for Mortal Kombat 3, and then every game that followed was kind of, it grew exponentially. And now there's over 100 people on the team. It's gone from a pretty garage band production type of thing to this entire almost movie-like production, just because of the scope of what we're doing and the technology and the amount of data that has to be produced.
Some of the guys I grew up playing with that I would travel around and play with arcade to arcade and run into, in Long Island or in the city, I still see them playing nowadays, and the latest Mortal Kombat really brought a lot of that back. And I'm really hoping to see a lot of the guys that I used to play with that are all, 35 years old now, jumping back online and really getting into it with each other, and I'm really looking forward to it.
The re-release of these kind of brings that originality back. It brings that freshness back to a lot of people who haven't been exposed to this. And it's just as fun as the newer ones, and I think people accept it. In all honesty, I'm kind of glad this is coming out, because my son's a big MK fan. I mean, obviously his dad's Raiden, but showing him this and showing him, hey, this is how we came from this point, the originality of it, all the way up to what it is now.
I've had at least 100 people tell me, I used to drive down to my local pizza place or a local 7-Eleven or something and play. And the first time I saw a fatality happen and whatnot, it's very ingrained in people's youth and all that. So a lot of this is kind of like a service to that, is, people can buy all 3 games, kind of relive that whole experience of Mortal Kombat, where was I when. It's the first time that we're offering it all together, so, all 3 games, no matter when you join the whole Mortal Kombat roller coaster, you get to kind of relive all those memories.